You're probably underpriced and not making the money you should make, or you're working like a dog night and day trying to keep these customers happy. And that's just not sustainable. If you want to have a successful plumbing business, go find other plumbers who are successful, start copying what they're doing. Likely you'll have the same success that they have. Like, you can grow it into something that'll make you $1 million profit a year very, very easy. We grew ours to that point in like a year and 4 months. You don't need financing to grow your business. You can grow a plumbing business. It is attainable and you're not that far away from it. All you need is, what's up, Joel? Welcome.
Woo.
Welcome back, Jared, to another episode of the Jared Williams Show.
Sorry, I just told a really funny joke and I was laughing at it.
Dude, it was really bad.
Super funny.
It was really bad, just like the rest of your jokes.
Dude, all my jokes are solid. Ask my kids. They'll tell you.
No, not going to ask. Okay, today we're going to talk about how to finance your plumbing business. Right? Because a lot of guys are wondering, like, how do I get this going? I even thought in the beginning, like, I got to go get a loan. I got to go, get all this cash together because I'm going to have to buy all these vehicles. I'm going to have to buy all this equipment and tools, and it's going to cost tons of money. How do I do all that? Right? Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about.
So, like, when does playing the lottery come into picture?
Immediately.
Okay,
Step one.
Buy a bunch of lotto cards.
Yeah, probably like 5,000 to up your chances, right?
Yeah, put it on that credit card we were talking about.
Yeah, what's a lottery ticket cost?
Doesn't matter. Put it in your hourly rate.
Oh my God. I mean, I wonder if that'd be like a viable strategy to win the lottery. Like, if you just bought enough tickets, like, I wonder what your chances are.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
probably pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, the lottery,
or somebody would have done that.
How the lottery crafts itself, they probably think, like, how many tickets would somebody have to buy, and are we going to make money if they bought all the tickets to, like, increase their chances to win?
Yeah, I have no idea how the lottery ticket works.
Yeah, I don't think.
Other than, who's that guy? Was it on? What was that show where everybody got in the plane crash on the island and then it got all weird? Yeah. And there was the bigger dude.
What's like the main guy? Oh, wait, wait.
Didn't he like win the lottery?
I think so.
Yeah. Was it
before or after they were on the island?
I have no idea.
Comment below if you know.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very important.
When Lost came out, I was young and we were the only ones that had our own apartment. And everybody came over to our house and we would just binge watch Lost. We were just addicted. It was funny.
It was a cool show until like the later seasons, and then it lost me.
Yeah, season 2 lost me. I barely made it through season 1, and then season 2 is like, this is too long. I can't hang. So that's how I roll. So go buy a bunch of lottery tickets. Hopefully you win.
Over. Boom.
And then bam, you can start your
peasy.
plumbing business.
Yep, right there.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the reality of it is you really just don't need that much cash.
Sure.
Right? So, and a lot of people think they do, but they don't really.
Why do they think they do?
Hey, if you want to take your plumbing business to the next level, you're going to want to join our coaching program over at Wealthy Plumber, where you can get everything you need to grow a multi-million-dollar plumbing company, including pricing calculators, SOPs, email campaigns, and the whole 9 yards. If you want to check it out, go to wealthyplumber.com. That is wealthyplumber.com. Because they're adding up all the things that they think they need cash for right away.
Oh, sure. Like total bulk amounts of cash.
Yeah, and they neglect the cash they're going to make along the way, right? So because coming from like plumber to business owner, you don't really understand cash flow.
Sure.
So cash comes in, cash comes out, you keep a little bit.
Right.
And then you can take that cash and spend it back on your business, right? So like, they're looking at like all the stuff they need cash for, like, I wrote a list up there on the board. Like, you can't look. You're not allowed.
I would never.
It's like, like all their startup costs, which is valid because there are some startup costs, right?
Like what? Like, give me some startup costs.
Oh, geez.
You don't have to give me amounts, but just like the things that you
putting me on the spot here.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Thanks.
Got your back.
I mean, so like to get started, you have licensing you got to get. That costs a little bit of money, a couple $100 here and there. You've got insurance you've got to purchase, right? So that might cost you $1,000. You've got a bond you've got to purchase. So you got to bond your business usually. Usually most states require like a $10,000 bond. So that might cost you $250 to get bonded for $10,000.
What does that mean? I don't know what a bond is.
So a bond is like you go get a bond, and usually got to get a bond just to get the business license.
Does every business license need a bond?
No, just construction business.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if that is all states or Canada or whatever, but I know in Alaska and I know in Florida and I know a few other states, you need a bond. And so the state has like a minimum bond. And what that is if you mess up somebody's house, they can go to the state and get your bond. Right?
Gotcha.
So basically you buy a $10,000 bond for $250 from a bonding company. And what they do is they charge you for that $250, and they know that if they get enough customers, then only so many of them are going to get bonds pulled on them, and that's how they make their money.
So it's kind of like, it's like insurance.
Kind of, but not insurance.
Yeah.
It's a bond.
Huh.
Right?
Sounds like a scam to me.
Yeah. And then like our state, like if you get your bond pulled too many times, then
yeah,
you
sure.
lose your license.
Yeah, because that is an indication that you're screwing up.
Yeah, or you're not doing you're not doing quality work, or you're making a bunch of mistakes,
Yeah.
or whatever for some reason.
Before it even get to the bond stage, though, like you as a business would probably try to take care of that customer, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's businesses who don't.
Right.
Yeah, there was actually a guy in our town. He was going and building houses, and he was just doing like super shoddy work. Ended up getting his bond pulled, starting another company, getting his bond pulled, starting another company, getting his bond pulled. Like going, not even just shoddy work, just like getting the house to like 70% done, getting all of the money from the customer, and then splitting.
Oh, wow. Just
So
that was his business model.
Yeah. So like customers would be left with, still owing the bank a bunch of money in a half finished house.
Sure.
No money left over to finish. Not quite half, but like they'd have to go in there and there'd be no doors and no trim and no toilets or something,
Yeah.
kind of poopy.
Yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, he ended up getting his bond pulled. I worked with another guy, I did a few jobs behind a guy. He was going in, it's not that he was running away with the money, but he was going in and doing like really crappy workmanship. So like, I remember one house, this guy we do a ton of like mono slabs. So it's like a slab on a gravel pad that's just one pour, right? And so you go in and you do the underground plumbing, and he was going in and doing the underground plumbing himself. And then he was going in and doing the radiant slab heat himself. And he would pour like the houses he was building had a big patio, and he would pour it all as one pour, and he would put the same tubing from inside to outside, right?
Right.
Thinking he was snow melting. The problem is there's no like,
Snow melting.
it's cold in Alaska, right? So
Yeah.
you have to have a thermal break between
Yeah.
the pad that you have inside and the pad that you have outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got busted for that and a bunch of shoddy framing stuff, and ended up getting his bond pulled.
Gotcha.
Out of business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I
So,
understand.
You got a bond. Yeah, startup costs. And then so you got to have some sort of vehicle, right?
Sure, of course.
I mean, you can start in your truck, but I would just go buy a van, like a brand new van. And then you've got some tools to buy. So you got to buy some tools. You don't really have to buy materials. Like you could just collect those as you go.
Do you think that some guys think that they need to buy like a bunch of stock of materials?
I think, there's a lot of guys out there who think they need to have a van that's wrapped and they need, it to be full of materials, and they need to have all the latest and greatest tools. But the reality is, like, if you don't have the money for that, then I would just like get your bare minimum.
Yeah.
Like it's called your MVP, right? So in any other business, you would think of it as, okay, what's my minimum viable product? So what's the minimum I need to actually go out and build a customer and make money?
Right.
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 And the reason like businesses think that way is it's like, okay, I want to go test this business with as little, cash input
Sure.
from myself just to make sure it's viable.
Right.
Right. So like any other business, like an internet-based product or even an e-commerce store, like an e-commerce store wouldn't start up and have like 30 different products. They would have like one product,
Right.
maybe like 2 different colors, and they would get just enough of them to go on the internet and test it.
Right.
They probably wouldn't even get the product first. Like they would just run the ad,
Yeah.
right? And then they'd be like, oh, we're out. Sorry, we're canceling your order. That's how they would roll. And if they knew they could get enough orders, then they would get a minimum amount of the product and actually send it out and then get reviews on the product to make sure the product is good.
Right.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing with your plumbing business. The only thing, it's like, it's such a time-tested business.
Yeah.
and such
And
a
it's
time-tested
necessary.
service, and it's necessary. Like, you know that if you put it out there and you can get enough work, then you have a viable product already, right?
Right.
The only difference is people starting a plumbing business, like, you still kind of want to think about your minimum viable product for your own purposes, right?
Yes.
So you can have the minimum amount of money into your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, startup costs, you've got startup costs. And then I think a lot of guys just move into like, okay, well, you know, I want to have 5 vans or 6 vans.
Or I want to start hiring these people
Yeah.
to help me. Or maybe I got a buddy who's already interested and I want to get him on board fast so that I can get to whichever stage I want to get to.
Yeah. And so they're just adding up all those costs in their head and going, okay, that's like 6 vans. Like, I just bought 2 more vans that are 83 grand a piece.
Yeah.
And then by the time we put shelving and tools and parts in them, they're going to be 110, 120 grand, right?
Yeah.
So you buy 6 of those, there goes $700,000. And that's how they're thinking, right?
And with like the weakness that we experience with so many plumbing business owners about understanding their price and how they actually make money, when they're going through these startup costs and they're seeing these huge numbers, that could probably be kind of, well, I don't know, disappointing. Like, I'm never going to be able to do this.
No, because you've never seen numbers like that in your life.
Yeah.
Right?
And you wouldn't even know how to begin to pay for those.
Yeah. So like for me, you tell me it's going to cost me, you know, $300,000 or $100,000, or we got to spend 20 grand here. I don't think about it that hard. Those don't seem like big numbers anymore, only because I've been dealing with big numbers for the last few years, right? So I'm used to, it's not just the big number that I'm used to, it's the ebb and flow of money that makes me comfortable with the bigger numbers.
Right.
And when you first go into business, like, you're used to being a plumber and getting a paycheck for, I don't know, $1,000 a week, maybe less, maybe more. Those, like, you start throwing around numbers of like 10, 20, 30, 40 grand.
Yeah.
They sound like big numbers, right? So I get where they're coming from, because I thought the same thing. I actually went to, it was actually your wife's brother. I remember because he works at Keller, and I was in there telling him I was thinking about going into business for myself. And he was like, yeah, you should. Which is actually kind of funny thinking about it, because he would say that. But it's funny because he's not a very encouraging guy. Yeah. But he was pretty encouraging at that time, thinking about it.
Maybe that's why in my head I'm like, man, I'm trying to hear him say words like that.
that?
Like, I don't think I've ever heard him say anything like, yeah, man, like, you should.
Yeah, and I remember telling him, like, I want to go into business for myself, and I want to grow to like 10 trucks, and I want to like have a real business.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to get the funds from. And this is before I like figured out how to start it and afford all the stuff, right? How to get all the funding, what we're talking about on this podcast. And he's got like a business degree. And he told me, put a business plan together and I'll help you get some funding. Like, I'll help you out. I was like, oh, that'd be cool. I never did it, but it was nice of him.
Yeah, it's very nice of him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember just being in that headspace of like, okay, I want to get, 10 trucks. I saw these other businesses running around town.
Yeah.
That were doing really well for themselves.
Right.
And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want. I would just start adding up those numbers, and I'd be like, okay, I need hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to make this happen. Right?
Yeah. And were you thinking like hundreds of thousands of dollars for this end result to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking like, okay, I want to be there, even if I wanted, if I start adding it up, it's going to cost me like $1 million to get there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm thinking like, okay, so
if I just save $1 million,
if I could, I know, but that's like so far out of reach at that point.
So far out of reach.
It seems impossible.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I got to work for 10 years and save every penny I ever made.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, so if I start a plumbing business and then I want to grow to this point in 10 years, over a 10-year period or a 5-year period, I got to either invest $200,000 a year or $100,000 a year every year, and then I'll be there. I'm like, I don't know how to make an extra $100,000 my first year to even like get going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and you just don't know what you don't know.
Of course.
And so luckily I just jumped into starting a business and, I'd started before and I always went and bought used vans, and I had just a few tools, never really set myself up for success.
And the used van idea, that's just to have lower costs, right? Like
Yeah,
you
that's
go into
like-
that, like, oh, it's why would I buy a new van when I can get a used van, save 20 G's or whatever it might be?
Yeah, well, think about it. Like, I was a plumber. I was making like 80 to 100,000 a year,
Yeah.
and up to that point, I had never bought a new vehicle.
Yeah, sure. So you weren't even like, it wasn't even like an okay thing for
I'm
you
like
to do.
second guessing myself if that's right or not. But I don't think I had. I never bought a new
No,
vehicle.
you never. No, because I remember.
I always bought old vehicles.
Yeah, because I remember like you were excited because you bought. No, your Scion you bought new, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that was the best decision of my
Yeah,
life.
but it wasn't very expensive when you bought it. 'Cause at the time,
No.
that Scion was like 12 or 13 or 14
It
grand.
was like 14 grand.
like
yeah.
which is incredible for a brand new.
The
vehicle.
payment on my new car cost me less than the gas on my truck. And at the time, my family needed something reliable to drive around in, and that thing was the cheapest there was. And we were living off just my income. And so, like, looking back, and that car was really ugly, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
That thing always started. We never changed the oil in it. Like, talk about like dumb kids, right?
Yeah.
Not taking care of their stuff.
Yeah.
Never changed the oil in it. It'd be 40 below, and we wouldn't plug that thing in. For people who are listening in the United States, in Alaska, you got to put oil pan heaters and battery heaters and coolant heaters on your car, and you got to plug it in to warm up your engine before you go and start it, or your car doesn't start. Nine times out of 10.
Or it's a very hard start.
Oh yeah, this
It's
car
gnarly.
just started right up.
Yeah.
Sounded gnarly, but
It's still,
dude,
it was like my Subarus.
yeah, it did it over and over and over again. And we didn't change the oil in that thing for years. Because like they count to this point where like it had so many miles on it. It was so beat up from my kids that I was just like, whatever.
We'll just
I
keep it
want this
going.
thing to die because I want to go buy something else, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to until it dies.
Yeah.
And it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And we eventually sold it.
But even
So-
then, when you made that calculation to buy that vehicle, it
made
wasn't
sense.
because it was like, oh, I'm used to buying new vehicles. It just made sense.
Yeah, penciled. So
Yeah.
But what doesn't pencil in your head is like, okay, I'm gonna go buy I think the first van I bought was $54,000, right? And so I'm gonna go buy this $54,000 van that I only have enough money to put a down payment on of $1,000,
Sure.
and I'm gonna hope that I can go make enough money to make more than I'm making now, plus make my van payment.
Right.
And saying that now, it's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Of course.
Of course you're going to make more money than your van payment. But then it's like, I'm stuck with this vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to sell it back into the community for as much as I bought it for. So I'm going to be out money there if this doesn't work out.
It's already a big debt, which you have been conditioned so far to be like, all debts are
All
bad.
debt is
So you're
bad.
being very irresponsible.
Yep. Dave Ramsey, been listening to him for years, doing his envelope system.
Yeah, I remember.
And I'm like, all debt's bad. I want to do this business without debt.
So now you're a slave to this debt
Yep.
for your van payment.
Yeah. So coming from that mindset, it's a scary thing to go buy a $54,000 van, right? And so, you can see that. Yeah, super scary. I remember that day. I remember my wife thinking I was crazy. And I was like, no, I think it's good. I got to buy a van. And I wanted to buy a good van because I was tired of driving around in old, crappy looking vans because I felt like it made me look crappy, right? Like a crappy plumber.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go out with a good look, and I wanted to do good work,
Sure. Yeah.
and I wanted to make a good name for myself, which I think most plumbers, that's what they want, right?
Yeah.
They're typically not going out going, I want to look terrible, I want to do crappy work,
Right.
and I want to make a bad name for myself.
If I get my bond pulled, I'll just get another one.
Yeah. Most plumbers want to do a good job. They just don't quite know how to.
Yep.
So, startup costs, van, tools, bonding, insurance, all that good stuff. And then, business licensing, you might need a few grand for that. And then you need to work on getting a good logo.
Right.
Or, in the beginning, you don't have to have like a high dollar logo.
Yeah.
You could have a generic logo. You're going to be better off getting a halfway decent logo.
Right.
I wouldn't wrap my van in the beginning. Like a lot of guys think they got to, start their business. I got to get my van wrapped so I look legit.
Right.
It does help, getting your van wrapped and you show up to a job. it does help you like feel super professional.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I got my first van wrapped, my name was still J Rods,
Mm-hmm.
and I got the van wrapped. And I remember pulling up to my first job and being like, damn, I'm like legit.
I'm a real company.
Yeah.
I'm a real business.
Yeah. And I had like a nice black Carhartt shirt on, and I had like nice gray Carhartt pants on, and I actually started wearing like nice boots, and I had a nice hat with my J Rods logo on it, and the nice van, and I had a notepad that had my J Rods logo on top. It does make you look and feel more professional, but if you don't have the money for it, that's not where I would spend it first.
Gotcha.
Because
the bang for the buck isn't quite there at this point.
No, not quite. Yeah. I would want to get like more of the ball rolling, right?
Yeah, sure. Maybe the system so that you are bringing in money. You begin to get comfortable with like a cash flow situation. You're like, okay, I'm getting work. I'm bringing money in.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can start to plan for these funds for something like van wraps, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. And so back to like getting started, you're getting started. You think you need all this money, but in reality, you only need money for like that first step, right?
Yeah.
So
you just got to get to the point where you can go and do calls. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing is like, so rather than thinking you need a ton of financing to go finance this huge business, forget about that huge business right now and just break it down to the first step. What do you need to get that first step done? And then worry about the rest later. So the first step of like getting the licensing, getting your vehicle, getting the minimum tools, getting a logo, getting your Google My Business going, all of that you can get done for you could probably get it done for under 10 grand.
Yeah.
Right. And so that might sound like a lot of money, but that's all you need to get started. So
yeah, sure.
So for financing for that, like then financing becomes a lot easier because it's not $1 million you're trying to save up, right? To invest in this plumbing business. Now it's only 10 grand. And 10 grand you might not have 10 grand, but 10 grand is fairly easy or achievable to get for most people, right?
Yeah, much more than 100 grand, 300,000 or $1 million.
Exactly. So you have a few different options. Like either you have the cash and you can just spend it. And if you did have it, I wouldn't be afraid to spend it because if you get all that stuff set up, it sets you up to go make more cash. Right. You can, like, if somebody's wanting to start a plumbing business and they're still working, they could go to their employer and be like, hey, I want to make some extra money. How can I make some extra money? Right. I might not tell them that I'm planning on starting my own business, but maybe you have that relationship with your employer and you could.
Yeah.
I'd be cool with that if one of my guys wanted to do that. I'd say, sweet, yeah, let's get you hooked up. Like, what do you need? Or you can start doing side work, right? So you could go get some side jobs to make some extra cash, make sure and save that cash instead of spending it, and then go invest it into getting your business going. What I did is I got a credit card. So not only did I have the van debt, but I had the credit card debt.
Sure.
But like credit cards.
Was that your first credit card?
Ever?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, but I had a credit card for a long time.
Yeah.
We just always paid it off.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And so when I started my plumbing business, I knew that if I could just get it going, I could make the money back.
Yeah.
And I kind of lucked out because I'd started my business a couple times before, right? So I kind of knew like how it was going to go a little bit.
How it was going to feel.
So I was confident enough to put all the expenses on a credit card,
sure,
and then be able to pay that card off,
sure,
right? But a lot of people don't like that. They don't like credit cards.
Yeah,
I would have no problem putting it on a credit card.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's your options. You could try and go get like a small business loan, but it's going to be so much more headache than just going and putting on a credit card or trying to make the extra cash or doing a side job or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're up and rolling, and that's really all you needed to get up and rolling was 10 grand. It's not that bad.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for like 10 grand to like begin to make a lot of money, to begin to.
Yep.
That's a very low startup for what you get at the end of everything. Right.
Yeah.
Even like halfway through.
The investment and the risk, like the risk of you not making that 10 grand back is really, really low.
Yeah.
Like the chances you're going to make 10 grand back is really, really high.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that's a no-brainer, especially now, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 grand, you're up and rolling. And then it's like, okay, how do I finance, once you're up and rolling, then you got to figure out, okay, how am I going to finance the rest of this business growth? Like, how am I going to afford to buy all these vans, deck them out with tools, fill them up with parts, hire the guys, put the software in place, do the marketing that I need to do, and all that good stuff. And really what it boils down to is you just got to have your pricing figured out, right?
Yeah, because it seems like only at the beginning is where you need to like put out money that you don't quite have yet.
Yeah.
Because you haven't actually done anything. But everything after that seems like now if you're priced properly, then it's just like it's all accounted for in some way, so long as you have jobs, so long as you're doing work.
Yeah. So now you have put yourself in a position where you have the ability to go out and make money, right? And you have in that position, you have the ability to go make a lot of money because you don't have the overhead of a normal business, right?
Right. Sure.
And so you want to price yourself to where you're able to cover the overhead of a normal business, right? So what a normal business would price their services at with, a business that has the overhead of like 3 guys, a shop, a CSR, a manager, all those expenses, marketing budget, all that good stuff. That's how you want to price yourself so that when you're out there working out in the field and you don't have that overhead, now you're able to put away a ton of cash that you can then go reinvest back in your business.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, like I worked for like 4 months and I paid off all my credit card debt, paid off all my tools, paid all my living expenses, and put away 80 grand.
How did that feel?
It felt awesome.
Yeah, especially like
I had never had that much money in the bank in my entire life.
Yeah. Contrast to like your other 2 times starting your plumbing business.
Dude, I didn't make 80 grand in the whole year. Seriously, I didn't.
Yeah.
And it's just because I was underpriced because I didn't understand the correlation between how much it costs you to run your business and how much you need to charge the customer to cover it. That's it. I never once added up my actual expenses and went, here's all of my expenses and I want to pay myself this much, right? And I know that I'm only going to bill out this many hours at the end of the year. How much do I got to charge to cover all that? I never did that. Never. So I would just go out and I would charge what at the time was one of the higher rates in town.
Yeah. And
so I thought I would be okay and I'd be billing out all this money. And then at the end of the year, I made like 60 grand.
Yeah.
And so, and before I was working for companies that like my wage plus all my benefits was 160 grand.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm losing 100 grand a year running my own business.
Yeah.
And I'm working twice as hard for it.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. And so the first 2 times I ran my business, it was like, well, there's no way I can hire anybody because it just doesn't pencil.
Right.
So
I can't even make enough money.
The problem was I was trying to run my business with this cap of money, right? It was just in my head. I didn't realize I can just run a business and charge what I need to be in business, right?
Yep.
And the thing is when you do that, nobody else around you can offer the same service that you offer without incurring the same expenses that you incur.
Yep.
Because nobody's going to be able to get new vans cheaper. Nobody's going to be able to get quality guys cheaper. Nobody's going to get insurance any cheaper. Yeah. Nobody's buying those Milwaukee tools any cheaper.
Right.
Nobody's getting a way bigger discount on parts than you.
Right.
It just doesn't happen, right? They're not going to get their shop for absolutely free, right? And even if they did, it doesn't even matter.
No.
It's such a small expense at the end of the day.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was kind of funny. Like the first 2 times is just no understanding of I have to bill out enough money to cover my expenses and pay myself and make a profit, right? Didn't have that. So anybody listening, just you could do that math or you could just go charge.
Right.
Probably I would charge at least $350 or $400.
Right.
That's how I would roll today, minimum. And that's going to get you off to a good start for sure. Way faster.
So why did you feel like you needed to save up 80 grand. Was that what your intent? Did you intend to save up a certain amount, or did it just sort of work out that way?
It just sort of worked out that way. You know, in that, it's like in 4 months, so I was just working. Like I had hired your wife as my CSR, so she was answering my phones, running my schedule, and I was just working like a dog. And I was used to that, of just working and working and working and working. And so to hire somebody else to go out in the field and work was scary. And so I put it off.
What parts of it were scary?
It's just like when I hired your wife. So I used to be the one to answer my phone.
Sure.
And I used to be the one to handle my schedule. And just giving that control over to somebody else and saying, here, you do this. And not knowing if they're going to do a good job or not.
Yeah.
Because you care about your business, right?
Yeah.
And when you're doing all the stuff, you are your business, which is, ultimately it's not a good thing. Like you want other people to be able to do parts of your business.
Right.
Because that's what business is. It's just leveraging other people for you to make more money, right? But in that, you want to provide them with a good opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So it's a win-win for both parties. Really, you want to make it a win-win for you, your employees, and your customer, right?
So it was more of like a, would you say like a trust issue that sort of delayed you of just like, okay, let me just hire another guy?
Yeah, trust issue, and just I was busy, so I was putting my head down.
Yeah, you're just working, doing your thing.
Yeah, and when you go from not having any money in the bank to now having more money than you've ever had in your entire life in the bank, like I think the most I've ever had in my bank account was like 10 grand before this, right?
Yeah.
So then I went to 80 grand in the bank account, and it's like it's 8 times more money, and you don't want to see it go away.
Yeah, so you were a little protective of it.
Yes.
You're like, no, this is nice. I like this. There's a lot of comfort and cushion in this.
Yes, so it gets very comfortable.
Yeah.
And then you're just working and you got your head down. So you've got that comfort and you're in the zone of working.
So you're in comfort. You're comfortable in both spaces. You're comfortable working with your head down because that's your specifically preferred like mode of operation. You got lots of money in the bank, so that's cool.
And you want to hold on to that money. You don't want to see it go away. So the idea of like going out and buying another vehicle and filling it with tools and spending the money on it, it's like, I made all this money. I don't want to see it go away.
And then you lose. So instead of just putting your head down, now you have to go find a van to buy. Now you have to find a guy. And then you got to like deal with him as a person and all these extra things.
Yep. And so you lose a little bit of your ability to actually go produce some revenue, right?
Sure.
So, but you have to recognize that, okay, if I go buy another van and I get another guy billing out, then I'll be able to put more money away even faster, right?
Right.
Because now that guy's going to make money and I'm going to make money.
Right.
So, and I think if I would have at that time, if I had been like doing a journal every day and writing my goals down in the beginning and going, next step, I need to hire another guy. And if I would have said, okay, I'm going to get whatever cash in the bank that I'm comfortable with, and then I'm going to hire another guy, I probably would have hired a guy when I had like 20 grand in the bank.
Sure.
Right? Because the reality, like his paycheck, he maybe cost me $2,500 a week. So 20 grand, I could float him for like 10 weeks if we had no work. That's a long time to have no work.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I probably could have hired him sooner, but it was scary. I was comfortable. I was busy.
You didn't know the stuff you know now.
Right.
There's still an uncertainty beyond what happens next in your business and actually how it's going to go and how it's going to feel and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, if I was anybody today, I'd put away 20, 30 grand and I'd start then going and reinvesting back in my business.
Gotcha.
So the other part of that people kind of miss when they're thinking about financing is they're thinking about marketing, right? So they know they've got to spend some money on marketing in order to get customers. And there's a few things that they miss out on when they're thinking about marketing. So number one, they need to go hire a real marketing company. And I know we hammer this down a lot, but a marketing company that's going to handle the majority of their stuff, right? Yeah. And then you're going to pay that marketing company a retainer, which is usually going to be $3,000 to $5,000 a month, just that you're just paying them just to handle your marketing. And it's going to sound like a lot, right? Just like that $1,000 van payment sounded like a lot. Just like hiring a guy sounded like a lot. And it's all scary because it's all new. You just got to
tested.
Huh?
It's untested.
Yeah, it seems untested to you,
Yeah,
right?
to
Like,
you, it's untested.
like you don't know, like, hey, if they actually get me a good website and GMB and GLSA and PPC, you're like, I have to spend all this money on this stuff and I don't know if it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is like plumbing businesses all over the world are spending money on this stuff and it works,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So you need to go hire a marketing company and just be okay with that retainer, right? If you don't have the money to pay it or the work to afford it, you need to go like do guerrilla marketing until you can, and until the marketing company you hired actually starts bringing you in phone calls, because it takes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get the marketing ball rolling, just for them to go set it all up on their end. Takes a long time.
If you had like that 20, 30 grand in the bank, would you, well, it's tough to say, because of course you'd be like, yeah, I would go hire a marketing company right then. But like,
Yeah.
if you didn't know what you know, is 20 or 30 grand in the bank a good enough amount to go hire a marketing company on retainer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. 10 grand. If I had 10 grand, I'd go do it. Like,
just because it's such, and I guess really the point of that is it's such an important part of your business in the long term. It's a long-term move that you make very early on. And if you don't make it early on, you're going to be paying for it until you actually make that move.
yeah, it's like, it's part of your minimum viable product.
Yes.
Because if you don't have customers, what good is your service?
Yeah.
Right? You bought this van, you filled it with tools, you have the ability to go bill a customer, but if you don't get any customers, all of that's a waste. The longer you wait to get customers, then the more money you waste on that stuff, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I would just bite the bullet and go get a marketing company and then start marketing. And so in the marketing, there's a couple mishaps that happen.
Right.
So number one is when you spend on marketing, the way that works, right? So a lot of guys see like a marketing budget for the month and it's a big number and they're like, I don't have that money, so I can't spend it, because that's how you're used to thinking, right? And then the other end of it is, instead of you covering your marketing budget and it coming out of your pocket, your marketing budget should be paid for by your customer, right? So that like every time you market and you get a customer, that customer then pays for 2 more customers, right? And so on. And then those 2 pay for 4 more, and then those 4 pay for 6 more. And you have this machine where you actually aren't paying for marketing, right? So the idea with like, let's go back to that first thing there, is that like you'll hire a marketing company and they'll be like, hey, so we've got your website set up, we've got your Google My Business set up, now we need to do, pay-per-click and GLSA. We recommend a budget of, I don't know, 2 grand or 3 grand or 4 grand, right? And you might be thinking, geez, I'm already paying you, $3,000 to $5,000 a month, and now you want me to spend another, we'll just call it 5 grand. Now you want me to spend another 5 grand on pay-per-click, and you're like, I don't have that kind of cash, right?
And by that you mean you just don't have it chilling in your bank account.
Yeah, I had 10 grand, and I spent 7 on tools, and I spent the other 3 on hiring you, and I've got a couple jobs. Maybe I've got $1,000 left over, but I don't have the 5 grand to give you for marketing.
So then maybe at that point, it's like, never mind. I guess I just won't do any marketing. Like, is that sort of the pivot that you see when guys come up to that? That realization?
A lot of guys will be like, well, maybe we can just do 1,000, right?
Sure.
But the thing is with marketing is the more you spend, the more you get back in return.
Yeah.
Marketing is like a box that you can put money in and get more money out. So you put money in the marketing box and it comes out as a phone call. And as long as you can take that phone call, turn it into a booked job, and then turn that booked job into money, then you're going to make more money whenever you put money in that marketing box.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're one guy, then you need to put enough money in the box to keep one guy busy. Right? And if you put extra money in and you get enough work to keep 2 guys busy, then you can go hire another guy, right? And then you can make even more money. And that's how it works, right? So, and that's kind of like, you're going to use the marketing box to help you scale your business, right? So, and the way it works is like, okay, like what I would do, and this is what I did in the beginning, is I had the marketing company. They were like, hey, we should spend like $4,000 a month on PPC, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And we should spend $500 a month on retargeting, and we should spend $500 a month on Facebook and Instagram ads.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that money. I said, how about we spend $8,000 a month on PPC, and how about we spend $1,000 on, I think we still only spend $600 on retargeting. That's a big retargeting budget. How about we spend $1,000 on Facebook and $1,000 on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I was comfortable of doing that is because I understood how the box works.
Right.
So and this is what plumbers don't understand, when you give them a budget of $10,000 a month to spend on marketing,
Mm-hmm.
you put money in like day by day, right? So it's not like you give the marketing company $10,000 and you're out $10,000.
Right.
You hope it gets you enough phone calls.
Right. Sure.
Typically the way it works is you will set your budget and Google will bill you as you get phone calls, right? Or
Right.
as you get clicks on your website,
Mm-hmm.
which you're going to get phone calls from.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might go a couple days, get a couple phone calls that you can go make money on, and then Google sends you a bill.
Mm-hmm.
But you've likely already made the money on the phone call.
Right.
Or you're real close to making money on the phone call, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're able to get the phone call, book the job, go make money on it, bill the customer at the end, then your marketing's already paid for.
Right.
As long as you're billing the customer enough to cover the marketing cost that it took to get the phone call, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where like going into, back to like the cost of doing business,
Mm-hmm.
you have to account for the money you're going to spend to get the customers
Mm-hmm.
in your budget so that you can afford to get more customers,
Right.
right?
And it seems to me like that's the mistake that guys make.
Yeah.
Because like the marketing box isn't working for them
Right.
because they're going to be spending money, but they're not going to be getting enough leads to actually recoup that budget.
And it's usually because they're not charging enough when they do get a customer.
Right. And then the perception is, oh, if I could only get more leads.
Yeah.
Which then sometimes that can turn into like, okay, well, let's diversify this marketing, not necessarily through the marketing company I have, but through other styles of marketing.
Yeah. Or if I could get cheaper leads
Yes.
like this, or if I could only get leads for higher ticket items. We see that a lot as well. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I just want to do water heaters. That's it. I just want water heater leads. So they'll see the guy on Facebook that's promising you 35 water heater leads
Right.
a month or whatever, right? And they'll go with it, and then it works for a little bit, but then it stops working, and
Right.
you're back to square one.
And then even that, because that particular, guy, he doesn't understand how to price his business anyway.
Yep.
So the chances are his water heaters aren't even, they feel like they're making money because they're larger numbers, or maybe he knows, he's like, I'm doing this really quick and I'm charging what everybody else is charging. So it's
Yeah.
making me money.
Yeah.
But there's still not an awareness of how much it is. Is it really making you money?
Yeah.
All these other things.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you should know, like, on every single job you do, exactly how much money you're making.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before you ever give the customer a price, you should know exactly what those numbers are so that every job you go to, you're making a profit.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's probably the most important one, is when you're acquiring customers, you have to cover the cost to acquire customers, and you really want it to be, I've spent, like, if it costs you $200 a customer, then you want to make enough money off of that one customer to get two more customers, right? So you want to make at least $400 off of that customer. In the beginning, whether that's, when your expenses are really low, that should be easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like that customer coming in and it costs you $200. If you're $400 an hour, your average ticket should probably be, I don't know, $1,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, you're paying $200 and you're getting $1,300 back. And you have a few other small expenses, so maybe you're making $1,000 profit because your overhead is so low. Well, now you can go get 4 more customers just by gaining that one customer, right?
Yeah.
And so you can see like that, like once you take that money and you start roping it back into your marketing budget, you can see that's going to grow really fast.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get customers really fast. And then you'll find yourself in that position where, okay, now I get a second guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that second guy goes out and bills, he's not quite as efficient at creating customers as you are, or extra marketing budget money.
Sure. And by that, you mean just because he's not selling as well as you are.
He's not going to sell as well as you are, and then he also costs you money, whereas you yourself don't cost you any money, right? So you can put in more and get more out of it
Yeah.
when it's just you.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it's kind of the advantage you have when you're like first in your business, right? Is you don't have the overhead, you don't have the expenses, you don't have the guys.
Yeah.
So it becomes easier to get that marketing ball rolling, in my opinion. And then go do some work, put some money away in the bank, go hire another guy.
Let's see. Tell me what you think about this statement. Just tell me what you think about it. Your goal is to sort of get out of word of mouth as fast as possible.
Yeah, because word of mouth is like we get this argument all the time on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. I've been a word of mouth plumber for 20 years. You know, it works. I'm like, yeah, it probably worked for just you. Word of mouth. Probably took you a few years to get to the point where you personally had enough work for word of mouth. And you probably had to be probably cheaper than most guys in town for the word of mouth to really catch on.
Yeah.
Like you either got to be really, really, really good or you got to be cheaper.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason that the customer is going to recommend you to another person, right? And it's either you're cheaper or you're just that much better.
And if you're that much better, it's probably at an expense to your own freedom and your own life.
Probably.
Because it's like he showed up at 2 a.m. when I needed my whatever thing fixed.
Exactly.
Like my very simple, not emergency fix. He showed up.
Exactly. So in that situation, you're probably either underpriced and not making the money you should make, which people will argue with me on that one too. Or you're working like a dog night and day trying to keep these customers happy, right? And that's how you're getting the word of mouth. And that's just not sustainable.
I guess maybe another thing is like, is word of mouth real marketing?
Yeah, I think word of mouth is very important. It's a very important piece of your marketing, but it's not the only piece, right? Because it's not scalable.
Yeah.
You can't scale a business quickly off word of mouth.
Yeah, it seems like that's like stage one. Stage one is going to be more of that word of mouth, but eventually you're going to sort of shed that word of mouth as you grow and scale.
I think, no, you're going to want to keep word of mouth. Like word of mouth is a great part of your strategy. Like the problem, so like we talked about on the last podcast, how when you're in the beginning stages of your business, it's the most expensive place to be in your business. So you have the least amount of margin and the most amount of risk, right? And so what you want to do is you want to scale your business so that your overhead and expenses are covered by more technicians that are actually producing income in the field, right? So you gain margin, which decreases the risk in your business, right? Because the amount that you have to pay out or the amount that comes in greatly overcomes the amount that you have to pay out to run your business, right? So you have better margins, more safety. And so in my mind, you want to get there as quick as possible, right? You want to get away from the risk and get to the point where the business makes a lot of money so that if something does happen, it's not a big deal to pay for it, and to a point where it's not as risky to run the business. So you have that safety net. Like you deserve it, your employees deserve that, and your customers deserve that. In the beginning, if you have somebody that ruins a $25,000 floor or crashes a $100,000 van, it's a big deal. When you have 10 guys out in the field and you've got extra vans and you're making good money, it's not that big of a deal. Right. So I would much rather get to that point as quick as possible. With word of mouth, it's going to take you a long time to get there. It's just how it is, right?
Do you think you'd even get there with just word of mouth?
I have no idea, but I wouldn't risk trying to find out.
Yeah. Why would you bet on it?
Yeah.
If there's other mechanisms out there.
That wouldn't be a bet I'd want to make.
Yeah. Because the word of mouth advantage is it's very low cost.
So I don't think about McDonald's, right? McDonald's, who doesn't know who McDonald's is? Does anybody not know who McDonald's is? Have you ever met a person that doesn't know what McDonald's is?
Nope.
Never. That'd be like, if you met somebody that didn't know what McDonald's was, you'd be like, what? Like, what world are you living in?
Like, you had really good parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Props.
Man. They protected you good. Where'd you go to school?
Yeah. Oh, homeschooled?
Were you in a cave the last 20 years of your life? Right? But yet, McDonald's continues to advertise.
Sure.
Right? And why do you think that is?
Because if they didn't, people would forget about them.
If they didn't, people would forget about them. They would lose market share, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if your plumbing business is at $10 million a year, and maybe you could survive off word of mouth.
Oh, sure. Like with the momentum that you've gained.
Yeah. Then like maybe, I don't think you would get there without word of mouth. I wouldn't want to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I was there, I would not want to turn my marketing off to find out if I lose market share or not, right?
I guess let me ask it this way. How much do you think about word of mouth when you think about your plumbing business?
So I think it's really important.
Like currently,
it's not that I think about word of mouth, but it's that I think about we need to do such a good job that that person is going to their friend and be like, these guys did a really good job. You should hire them, right?
So you're still thinking about it, but it's not in the sense of like, this is a really good thing and this is how we get leads, and that's awesome.
Well, think about it. Like if you're spending money on marketing but then every customer you go to, they're then telling their friends, these guys are terrible.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to work out.
Your marketing is going to become a lot more expensive.
It's just going to stop working at some point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going out spending money on marketing, and then the customer's like, hey, that was really good. Hey, you should call these guys. And they tell 3 of their friends. And then those 3 friends see your marketing all the time. So then they end up calling you. And then they go tell 3 of their friends.
Of course.
Right? Then it builds this snowball of word of mouth that supports your marketing. Right?
Yeah.
But if you're doing a bad job, you're going to build word of mouth that like doesn't support your marketing.
Yeah.
Right? Your marketing efforts are going to have to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then eventually it's just not going to work.
Yeah, so it's almost like in response to...
It'd be like if Coca-Cola, like, they're like world-class advertisers, right?
Yeah.
But if Coca-Cola, they sent you a bottle of puke, right? Their advertising wouldn't work.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter how good you say it is on your commercial. If you get the product and it's not good, then you wasted your advertising money.
Yeah, because companies are always going to advertise themselves as we're really awesome at whatever it is we're doing. But if that's completely untrue, then it won't matter because it'll be seen.
Yeah. You still got to go out and provide a really good service to the customer and create happy customers.
Yeah. So it's almost like in response to sort of the Instagram, like, well, I do word of mouth. It's like you could almost respond and be like, yeah, me too. Word of mouth is very, very important to me.
It is.
But that doesn't mean that I don't value all these other things, because all these other things are necessary. But word of mouth now is no longer the way that you just is the only way that you get work, and that's something to be proud of. It's the way that value is communicated to prospective customers that you might have not even touched yet.
Yeah, those word of mouth guys, they think that when they do advertising, they get crappy customers, right?
Yeah.
And it's not so much that they get crappy customers, they just don't know how to deal with these customers, right? But and it's true, when you get a word of mouth customer and they come to use your business, they already have a preset expectation of your business that you're really good.
Yeah.
And so when you go there, it's like way easier to do business with them.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's never heard of you because they saw you on a Google ad or whatever, then they're going to be a little more cautious of you. They're going to be harder to deal with. Maybe they just are a lower quality customer, right? They're not like all your other customers. And there's a reality to that. But like I would argue that you need to do more branding and brand awareness so that those people who haven't used you yet are more aware of the quality of service that you offer, the kind of business that you are. And that's how you solve that problem. So then you get to scale, right?
Right.
That stuff. So that's how I would do it. Yeah. So you're creating customers. And like at that point, if you're priced right, you should be able to grow and scale your business without any outside money.
Yeah.
For the rest of it.
Yeah.
So you've taken this.
And by outside money, you mean like, oh, I got to put money on this credit card that I might not have yet. Like you're making all your money's in-house.
Yeah.
You put money on your credit card, you pay it off, and when it gets paid off.
Yeah.
It gets paid off, and then you're making more money, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So like if you were going to pay your credit cards off monthly in that instance, you should be paying your cards off and all your business bills and having money left over in the bank account.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're self-sufficient.
Yep. As long as you're priced right and you're putting enough money in marketing to produce enough work so you can bill enough customers to make enough money. You know, it's that cycle there. Once you get that cycle going, so that initial $10,000 investment helps you get that cycle going. And once you get that cycle going, it's a cycle. And then you just build on top of that cycle.
Yeah.
So you add vehicles, people, and more marketing.
Right.
And that then allows you to go bill out more hours and more money. And then there's more money left over at the end of the day. And then you add more vehicles and more people, and then more marketing. And then that ends up being more money.
Right.
And your revenue goes up as you add people and vans. And so then you dump that back into marketing, which creates more work, which allows you to add more people, more vans, which then your revenue goes up. And as long as you're priced right, anytime your revenue goes up, your margins will stay the same, but the amount of cash you have left over at the end of the month will be larger. It's like you would go from like making 40 grand a month with 20% margins to making 200 grand a month with 20% margins.
Yes.
You just have more actual physical dollars to invest back into your business.
Yeah. So then when you're like, oh, I need to buy a new van, you're not like, oh, that's a ton of money. You're like, oh, well, that's much more reasonable because
it's snowballs, right? So like imagine like in the beginning, I think I was doing like 40, 50 grand months by myself. And let's just say your margin stayed the same the whole time. Well, one guy doing 50 grand being left over with 20 versus now I have 9 guys out billing out 50 grand, doing 20% margin. The amount of cash I have is way more. Yeah. So like once you start getting to like, you got 3 guys out billing, now you're getting a good chunk amount of cash and you can really start hammering down on your business growth.
Yeah, sure. It starts to snowball, as you say.
Yeah. The more you sink in, the more you get back. And then the more it snowballs, right?
Yeah. So I think it's like, part of the point of this conversation is you don't need a whole lot of money. You probably need less than you think to start. And the other side, like the reverse of that, if you're not priced correctly, it almost like if you're not priced correctly and you come in with $100,000 to start up,
you're gonna waste it.
Yeah, you can start up strong and feel good, but then it's just gonna go right away. And then especially if you don't understand like how marketing works and what you should be investing in, because sometimes it's like, a question would be like, okay, well, if I just gave you 40 grand, like I'm alone, I'm gonna loan you 40 grand, Jared, you have no idea what you're doing. Is that going to be helpful to you more than me giving you 10 grand if you don't know what you're doing?
No, you're going to lose it. You're either going to just do what everybody else does and just live paycheck to paycheck when they start their business because they're underpriced, or you're going to lose all 40 grand and then go back to work somewhere else.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it'd be nice to start with 40 grand.
Of course.
But regardless if you have no money, 40 grand, $1 million, you still have to do these things. You still have to price yourself right. You still have to market yourself properly.
Yep.
You still have to account for all your expenses. Like the business still has to make money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to, like, even if you had $1 million, you'll grow. You'll be able to add the vans in. You'll be able to do marketing. You'll be able to do all this stuff. But if you're not priced right, eventually you're going to blow through that $1 million. Right. You'll get all 10 vans in, you'll get the guys there, you'll get the manager in place, you'll have the software, you'll be doing all this marketing, and then you'll slowly watch that $1 million just go away over time. You'll just lose money every single month.
Yep.
And eventually you'll go back and go, why am I losing money every month? I have all these people out billing jobs, right?
Yeah.
But like the reality is most people don't make it to that point.
No.
Most people
don't start out with just like a loan of $1 million. Here you go.
No. Because you don't need it.
Or even like, yeah, exactly.
Right? It'd be ridiculous.
Well, it's kind of like, it mirrors the idea, if we go all the way back to the lottery example, is if somebody just wins the lottery tomorrow, they're going to blow through all of that cash.
Yeah.
Because they haven't actually lived the life of building wealth, understanding money, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, statistically, you see it, where it's like when people win the lottery, it's not like they're like, great, now I can institute generational wealth and invest this and do this. Like, I got money.
Yeah.
I'm going to live the exact same way, but with money. And then all the money goes away and they're like, I'm out of money now. It's like a similar thing that if you go into business, even if you secure that business loan, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to be helpful.
Yeah, the business loan is just money. It's not
know-how.
It doesn't teach you how to run a successful business.
It doesn't guarantee you anything except for maybe slightly longer before you fail.
Yes, because you have more money to burn.
Exactly, yeah, because it's just going to take a little bit longer.
Which gives you more time to learn how to run the business.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you never really know or you don't learn, then it's not gonna. And even this, like, oh, if I give you $1 million and it takes, and you last like 4 or 5 years and you finally learn, like that's like 4 or 5 years that you just wasted. Like, Jared, if you had $1 million right now to go, just like, I'm gonna go start a plumbing company with $1 million up front, it'd be like, oh,
I'd be like,
I can
dude,
deploy this very well.
That's a lot of money.
It's not too much money.
Like, holy moly, I don't need that much.
Yeah.
I could start 5 plumbing businesses. Yeah. Dude, I knew a guy who won the lottery.
No, you really?
He won some sort of lottery. I don't know what it was.
It's like the Ice Classic or something?
He won like $1 million, which I used to think was a lot of money. It doesn't seem like that much anymore. But he won like $1 million. Him and his family moved to Florida, and then within 2 years, they'd blown all of it, and they were out of cash. Yeah. And then I think him and his wife ended up getting divorced. He ended up moving back to Alaska, going back to his old job. I would see him on construction sites. And
wow. So you saw him like, you saw him before he won $1 million. You saw him as he won $1 million.
He disappeared one day. And I was like, man, whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, he won the lottery. And they moved to Florida. And I was like, oh, that's badass. And then like 2 years later, he was back at the job. And I was like, what are you doing here? Thought you
that you like finished.
I didn't know him that well. So I would be like, what's he doing back here? I thought he won the lottery.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, he blew it all. It's like, what an idiot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe I would have done the same thing.
I mean, you probably would have, because you would have been like, I don't know what to do with all this money.
Dude, I don't.
Government takes a bunch, you know.
Like $1 million is not enough to provide generational wealth.
No, you can't. You can't retire off at like 40 years old. Like, I'm just gonna retire off $1 million.
No, like even if you put all of that into syndicate real estate, like you might get, I think you might get like $4,000 a month back on that if you made good investments. Yeah. And then if you took that $4,000 a month you're getting and then put it back into syndicate, like you just kept saving it and then put it back
while
in.
you were like still working.
While you're still working.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the key.
Yeah.
So let's go back to like beginning of this conversation, because this business plan that we just laid out where you don't need any financing, where you can actually go start a plumbing business with relatively small amounts of cash or a credit card or something like that. Number one, you're $10,000 away from completely changing your life.
Yeah.
Right. Like what a huge opportunity that you're sitting on if you have the ability to go start a plumbing business and then grow it into something that can make you, like you can grow it into something that'll make you $1 million profit a year.
Right.
Very, very easy. Right. Like we grew ours to that point in like a year and 4 months.
Right.
And then it was like, we just had to wait the year to actually make the cash, right?
Yeah, sure.
So like 2.5 years later, after I started, all of a sudden, there's all this money.
All of a sudden you won the lotto.
Yeah, all of a sudden. But I get to win the lotto every year now, right?
Yeah.
And I can continue to win the lotto.
You don't even buy that many lotto tickets.
And I've built something that I can go sell that is very valuable, right? So now I have, not only am I making good money every year, now I've built something that if I ever need to or ever want to or want to retire, I can go sell it and it's worth a lot of money, right? And the longer it's in business, the more somebody's going to be willing to pay it for it. The longer it works, right?
The longer it's profitable.
Yeah. It's because it's got a good track record.
Yeah, I don't think we can really harp on that enough as far as like, if you can do this, if you're a plumber and you can start a plumbing business, you have an incredible opportunity. And you probably don't know you have an incredible opportunity, but you do.
No, they don't. And there's like so much opportunity after that as well, right? So like...
Yeah. I mean, after that, there's opportunity to do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Like you never dreamed of possible because you said, I'm just going to be a plumber. I'm just going to work in my dad's plumbing business. Yeah. But like that is like, yeah, awesome. You know how cool that is?
Yeah.
That is probably statistically an incredibly rare opportunity.
It's incredibly rare. It's the old saying, like we overestimate what we can get done in 1 year, but we greatly underestimate what we can get done in 5 to 10. It's totally true. Like 2.5 years from now, somebody could be making $1 million.
Right.
That's the opportunity you're sitting on.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have another 2.5 years to take that $1 million that you're making every year. So then you get $2.5 million in that 2.5 year time period that you can then learn to invest in something else.
Yeah.
So like idea of like syndicate real estate. Like you're giving somebody else money to go build these big apartment buildings, right? And then you own a portion of the apartment building,
Right.
and then you get a portion of the rent back. Like if you just did that for those 2.5 years, took that $2.5 million, now you're talking, I'm getting like 10 grand a month just off my syndicate real estate.
Right.
And my plumbing business is still making me $1 million a year.
Right.
So now I'm like, my plumbing business could go away and I'm still making $100,000 a year.
Right.
And I could just keep going, right?
Right.
I could take $1 million the next year and add another 4 grand a month to my income, or 8 grand a month to my income.
Yeah.
You could just keep going. Oh, that'd be 16. I'm doing it wrong. If you just did it for 3 years, think about this. You could increase your income by $24,000 a month.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
that's all because you are a plumber who started his own plumbing business.
That's all because you were a plumber that decided, I'm going to risk putting 10 grand on my credit card or 15 grand on my credit card, or I'm going to go work and save this money so that I can start this business to get this thing going. I'm going to learn how to do it in a way where it can fund itself.
Right.
And I'm going to push on it for 1.5 years. That's it. 1.5 years and get it to this point where it can make me $1 million a year. And then I'm going to take that money, I'm going to invest it.
Right.
5 years later, you have something that makes you $1 million a year, and you have this other thing that's making you 24 grand a year. Then you could go sell your plumbing business.
24 grand a month.
24 grand a month. What is that a year?
I don't know.
That's a lot of math.
Too much math.
240.
Could be.
It's like almost 280,000 a year. That's a good income.
That is a good income.
Yeah, I could live off that.
Yeah, you can do a lot off of that.
I'm good.
And like not have to worry about much.
Yeah, so then you could go sell your plumbing business for probably like $6 million, you know, we'll say $4 to $8 million, somewhere in there. Let's just say you get the lower end of 4 million, right? And at that point in time, all your vehicles are paid off. So you don't have anything that you have to pay off when you sell it. You just pay taxes on that. Go invest that into more syndicate. And all of a sudden, you're making probably $1 million a year just on your real estate investments, right?
All because you put 10 grand on a credit card.
All within a 5-year period because you put 10 grand on your credit card. That one decision, right? Completely changed this hypothetical person's life. Completely. Like I think about this a lot in my life because I did that very thing, right? Let's see, it's been what? 3.5 years? It's been 3 years.
Yeah, you're not even at the 5-year mark yet.
Yeah, it's only been 3 years ago. That's crazy. So 3 years ago, I did this very thing, right? I took 10 grand and I put it on a credit card. And then I built a business that was capable of spitting out $1 million a year at the end of the year in 1.5 years. And then I have 1 year of making $1 million as of last year. I'm into year 2 of making $1 million. In that year, I've started up, 2 other businesses? We got Plum Social. We got Wealthy Plumber. I got to hire you, provide you with a better opportunity. Got to give my son a job, provide him with a better opportunity. Now he's our video editor, so he edits these video podcasts. And then those things are all setting up to make more millions, right? And it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
Which is crazy. It's only been 3 years. So
yeah,
like
it's weird. It's still like feels way longer in
so
my head.
In 2 years, I guarantee you when I look back on where we're at in 2 years, because that's a long time. 2 years is still a long time. I'm going to look back and go 5 years ago, I made the decision to start my plumbing company and put that money on a credit card and look at what it has produced.
If you mark this episode, in 2 years, there'll be another episode where we're going to be like, remember 5 years ago?
Yeah. Remember 2 years ago, we had this podcast?
Yeah.
We were talking about, I wonder what we're going to do in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Like a lot could happen in 2 years.
Dude, craziness can happen in 2 years.
Yeah. And the same thing here is it starts to snowball as well. Just like when you first invested that money into your plumbing business. Well, once you get your plumbing business making you $1 million a year, now you have, where before you only had 10 grand to invest. Now you got $1 million. That's a lot of money. Like you can make a lot of stuff happen with $1 million. You can leverage labor, right? Yep. I mean, that's what I do right now. I'm leveraging your labor. I leverage my son's labor. We leverage our sales guys' labor. It's just all we're doing. Yeah. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
They're so close.
Yeah. And I mean, so what's keeping guys from that?
They just don't know.
Yeah.
I think if you could just paint that picture for them, be like, look, if they could see it, I think they would have no problem getting a credit card. They'd be swiping all day long, right?
Yeah. Well, of course,
It'd
because
be
if the investment is pay $10,000 now, and in 3 years,
no, look at
in a year and a half,
2.5 years,
yeah,
I'll give you $1 million.
Yeah.
Hey, you give me 10 grand right now.
Yeah.
And I promise you, guaranteed, 100%. Just the problem, it's not guaranteed.
Right.
But let's say there's an 80% chance, right? Which I think is pretty reasonable.
Or we could even say that the chances, like, I mean, all it would be like, hey, the ball is in your court to make this happen.
Think about this. If I came to you and I said, hey, Joel, if you give me 10 grand right now, I'll give you 80, there's 80% likelihood that I'm going to give you $1 million a year from now. No, 2.5 years from now, I'll give you $1 million every year for 4 years.
Oh yeah, I'd give you 10 grand. Be like, yeah, sure, dude.
80%. What about a 50% chance?
Yeah, 50% for sure.
50% chance, 10 grand.
Yeah,
and you get
for sure
$1 million a year for 4 years.
Yep.
That's the opportunity that these people are sitting on, right?
Yeah.
You would be like, if you couldn't put it on a credit card, you'd be going to your mom.
Yeah, sure.
You'd be going to your dad. You'd be going to your aunts and your uncles and your friends, and you'd be like, hey, I just need to borrow like $1,000. You go find $1,000 from 10 people.
Yeah.
Be like, I'll pay you back, I promise.
Yeah.
In 2.5 years.
I'll pay you back plus interest. Like you could even like tack on some gnarly interest on that.
Yeah. Just tell them, hey, if you give me $1,000 in 2.5 years, I'll pay you back 50 grand.
Yeah.
There's a 50-50 chance. You want to make that bet? They'd probably make it.
They probably would.
And then you could go
$1,000
and then you could go make that bet on your plumbing business, and you could probably pay them back at the first year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's yeah, I wish like I could take people and just like shake them and be like, you're right on the edge of like life-changing opportunity. You can live wherever you want. You can drive whatever car you want. You could do whatever you want at that point. It's pretty cool.
I think what happens is that guys just haven't seen that play out enough. Like they haven't looked around and seen other plumbing businesses see that success. Yeah. So they assume that one, it's like super rare. It's like really hard, like barely happens. And there's no way to like make it happen.
I think it's rare because, you know, I guess the caveat there is the 50-50 chance. Like if you don't know the steps to go from 10 grand on your credit card to, you know, a plumbing business that can generate $1 million in profit, if you don't know those steps, your chances are zero, right?
Yeah.
And so most people who try it, they don't invest in learning how to operate a successful plumbing business.
Right.
And so their chances of success go way down.
Right.
But if you know those steps, the chances of you being successful go far above 50%.
Yeah, because then it comes just back to, okay, you know the steps, now go do the steps.
Yeah.
And then it's just on you to go, I guess I just have to do the steps. And then making those required changes in your life to actually be able to do the steps.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And it's totally doable.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
It can't be that hard. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, though. I don't have nice cars. I don't live in a big house. Just don't want that stuff. I mean, it's funny because I was having this conversation with our sales guy, and I was like, you know, I was telling him my story.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I hadn't really thought about it that clear until I was telling him. And that's when all this kind of dawned on me of like, wow, these guys have a huge opportunity ahead of them, and they don't even know. And I was telling him, like, you know, what's like, I make enough money now to where, and I think I was telling you this too, I'm not motivated anymore by money.
Right.
There's got to be some other reason to keep motivated. And I still haven't figured that out.
That's a tough one.
It is.
Some people know that, right? Like I have conversations with guys where like they know what they want to do when they make the money. Like they know that the money is going to go to this, which is cool. Because that's like, I'm like, dang, that's awesome, dude, that you have that conviction.
Mhm.
But for me personally, I've never really known like, oh, this is exactly what I'm going to do when I hit this, except for like, well, it's really nice to tip really well. It's really cool to be able to like have opportunities to give money away. Like that's really fun.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I don't have a concentrated like, Jared, I'm going to build 10,000 wells in Africa and start 45 orphanages. And that's what I'm going to get after.
Yeah.
Just because like I don't have any like convictions that lean one way or the other.
Yeah.
For me, the process is where the enjoyment is. It's fun doing the things.
Yeah.
It's fun doing a good job in the things in the moment. And so sometimes it's hard to pinpoint like, okay, well, like ultimately, why do I want to do this? Like, why do I want to make this money?
Yeah. Probably the most enjoyable part of doing all of this has been providing opportunity for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll probably continue to be the one thing that keeps me moving forward.
Yeah.
Because like, just being able to hire all of the technicians that we hired and they make more money working for me. I like that.
Yeah.
We do our best to provide them with a better place to work.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me joy.
Mm.
My general manager, like he makes more money than he thought he would ever make in his entire life. That brings me joy.
Right.
The bringing you on board and having, like, you used to load planes for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, it was a waste of your abilities, right?
Yeah.
But like, you didn't have the opportunity in front of you, right? And you had a family and you had a wife and you had to pay the bills. So
Still have a wife.
you still have a wife. You still
got
have
bills.
Still have a family. You still have bills, right? But the ability to like provide a better opportunity where you can then go and better yourself and make better money.
Right.
Those are the things that I think will probably keep me moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
The giving thing, like I like to give. I love to tip big.
Right.
I have no problem if somebody like needs money for some things. I have no problem giving.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have a problem giving to like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, and maybe this is not right. I have no idea. But it's something that I've struggled with is I want to know that my money is going to good use. And I don't want to enable people to keep living the way they're living, right? I want them to, like, for me, to make that decision to, put all that money on my credit card to better my life, to push forward on my business. I had to hit the point in my life where I was like tired of, like, I hated going to work. I hated working for other people. I hated being a plumber. And I had to hit that point, the point to where it was painful enough for me to where I was willing to do the scary stuff and put in the work to change, right?
Right.
And so, like back then, if you would have gave me the $1 million, I probably would have blew it all, like the guy, like the guy that did that, right?
Or you would have been robbed of learning the skills so that now you can do what you do find fulfilling.
Right.
Because instead of you having to go through all these growth modes, actually coming down, because you weren't like, Joel, I want to start a plumbing business to provide opportunity. Right. You were like, oh, I'm start a plumbing business so I can make a bunch of money. And
I really wanted to start a plumbing business so I didn't have to be a plumber anymore.
Yeah, sure.
Right. That's really what it was.
Sure.
And then it was like, oh, this makes good money.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, this provides opportunity for other people. Right. This is cool. And it provides a good service to the community. This is cool. This is like this is a win-win-win for everybody. This is rad. It's like teach a man a hamburger or give a man a hamburger.
Teach a man a hamburger.
Give a man a hamburger, he eats for a day. Teach a man a hamburger.
Eats for more than
I don't
day.
know.
Yeah. But I mean, the point is like, because I understand your point where it's like, if you're giving money, like if you're just giving money to some person on the street, you could be enabling whatever behavior. You could be robbing them of the ability to actually get themselves out of their own situation and learn things to do that. Because I know, and so I always go like, I'm like in the middle with this. And sometimes like I gave a guy $20 on the street. He's probably gonna go buy something stupid. But in the moment I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this dude $20. I couldn't find the 10. I didn't know where it was. Yeah. And so for me, I didn't have any, it was in there somewhere. I just couldn't find it. And I was like, I don't got time. I gotta get to the DMV. But for me, it was more of a realization that like, it is good for my soul to give this money.
I think so.
And then like, it contributes to sort of, I don't know. Yeah, it's good for my soul. It's good for, I would even say my salvation to give this money. Yeah. And then he can go do what he does ultimately, right? And he's going to figure it out.
That's now, on his hands, yeah.
It's on his hands. but I'm still not going to go and like every day, I'm just going to go and do this. It was just in the moment. I was like, yeah, huh, feels good. Yeah, he's chilling there. Here you go. Boom.
See, and I kind of think like, I think that God has given me the ability to do what I've done in my life, and that with that comes great responsibility.
Like Spider-Man.
Yes, just like Spider-Man. So the money that he has given me, now I have this great responsibility with it, right?
Right.
And so when I go give it away, I think there's a responsibility in there as well.
Sure.
Of you better be giving it away in a way that maximizes the impact,
Sure.
or actually has the effect that you want to have, and not the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I go to the grocery store and they're like, "Do you want to round up to donate for?" It's not that I care about the money. I always say no because I don't know what the organization is. I have no idea.
Right.
I don't know what good that organization does. Right. So I always say no. Sometimes people look at me mean.
Do you think it's because it's such a small amount that you don't then take the time to go look up the organization?
Maybe.
Like,
I mean, like, honestly, if I had a bunch of money, like right now, I've always just taken all the money I've made and I've reinvested it back in businesses.
Yeah, sure.
Which has provided opportunity for other people, and I'm totally cool with that. If I got to the point where I just wanted to give out a bunch of money, then yeah, I would go figure out where that's going to have an impact that I feel good about, that I've made a wise decision with my money, right?
I guess my point is like, because sort of my rebuttal to the, well, why don't you run up at the grocery store? Because your answer is, well, because I don't know who I'm giving to. My next question would be like, well, why don't you figure out who's on their donation list, and then you know who to give to, and then you can feel good about it.
Yeah, I feel like it would take there. It's always just one. They always like flip flop it. Like every month it's somebody new, right? So I'd have to sit there and research it for hours on end.
And so, yeah, so my point is, since it's such a small amount, like for you to spend your time to research,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if it was rounding up to $10,000, then there might be an incentive to be like, oh, wow, that's more money. I should research this. Is this an actual opportunity?
Yeah.
Because it's just not.
Yeah. I really I don't know. I really like giving to people I know.
Yeah, me too. Like, so I think about that. I think about
barber.
that too.
He's cool.
Yeah, I like that. Well, especially, I mean, that just goes back to tipping. Like,
yeah,
like tipping high, I think is really fun because it's unexpected.
What I love about tipping rather than giving, to me, it's just a form of giving, but you're typically tipping like a productive person in society,
right?
And usually the people you tip, they're not like out crushing it, right? They're not making $1 million a year. And typically they take that money and they go respend it in the economy, right?
Right.
So you're completing the cycle of the economy. You're putting back into the economy, right?
Yeah.
Which
if you round up that cent at the grocery store
and they send it over to Haiti for some starving children, I don't know what they do with it.
Yeah, or they take some of it and put it back into their own business and then some of it over here, however the model works.
Yeah, it kind of boils back to like my belief of like, let's focus on, like it starts with myself. I need to focus on myself, get my own house in order.
Right.
Right. And then I'll focus on other things outside of myself. Right. Well, I think it's the same way with your giving and your community and your nation. Like I think we should be focusing on, as individuals, ourselves, as a community, our community, as a state, our state, as a nation, our nation. Like we should have all that stuff in order before we ever move outside of that to go help other people. That's how I think. Because I think if you can, like if I have my stuff in order, like just like I'm, not that I have my stuff completely in order, but as an example, like I made the decision to invest the 10 grand to learn how to grow a plumbing business, to get, that in order to a certain extent,
right?
And then look at the impact it's had, not just on myself, but on everybody that works for me. Now I'm able to go tip my barber really well,
right?
Like me getting just that one portion of my house in order has had a much larger impact on the people around me,
right,
than if I had stayed where I was and always just gave my money away.
Right.
Yeah. That's how I view it.
Yep. I think the danger because I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's always a danger in it, because
Yeah.
there's a point where we're never going to be perfect. Like, we're never going to be able to invest into our state and our nation, ourselves absolutely perfectly. So I think sometimes there's a danger where it says, well, until I do all this, then I will give, or until I find the perfect place to give my money, I'm not going to give money. Because at some point you're dude, I don't really know. So like, you seem good enough, go for it, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I think probably at the end of the day, like, I think God probably called us just to be joyful givers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Be able to part with your money, not like begrudgingly.
Yeah, I think that's super important to not, I mean, that just keeps you from the love of money. You know, the love of money is the root of all evil.
And to hoard it and to be really protective over it. And, and sad and bitter when it goes away. And
there's so much more than just the love of money. I mean, you get rid of, you know, if you start stacking away money and you don't want to give it away, and you hoard it, and you're in that mindset, that's a terrible mindset to be in, because you kind of get away from the mindset, you know, the mindset of abundance, where, you know, like, all my money could go out of my bank account today, and I know that tomorrow I can go make more.
Right.
I feel like there's an infinite amount of money available out in the world. And I think that when you get into, you know, not being able to give joyfully and wanting to hoard all your money and only keep it for yourself, it's real hard to have that mindset of, I can always make more.
Right.
Because if you have that mindset of I can always make more, well, then why not? Why do you care if it's in your bank account or not?
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
Just give it away. So yeah, I think that could become dangerous.
But like with everything, right? There's always like, the extremes are usually the dangerous parts.
Yeah.
It's usually like the middle path where there's wisdom and decision making and there's discernment.
Yeah.
Like, that's where we should try to live. And that sometimes goes to one side or the other of the extremes, one way or the other. But it's still important to be like, okay, I want to be wise and discerning with what I have, because that's at the core of stewardship.
Yep.
Right. And that can shift as time goes on. As you have more money or less money, then that'll determine like, okay, what's actually wise for me to do?
Yeah.
Is it wise for me to give $20 to the dude on the street when I don't even have $20?
Yeah.
Or like, I only have $20. Is that wise? Like, that's for you to decide in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of the guys who are coming up when they come up from where like I came, they're just a plumber, and they grow a business and they start making money, it's really easy for them to get into the, I want to hoard it all and like never see my bank balance go down.
And then what's scary about that, if they don't have the knowledge about their plumbing business, they might be doing that at the time where they need to be investing.
Yeah.
Or they just don't know what investing can get them.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, so here's another thing is like, this person, if they go through and make these changes, then it's funny because like you go grow your plumbing business, and then you're making $1 million a year, and it seems like a lot of money. But what most people what they forget about is the government and taxes. So now all of a sudden you're in the highest tax bracket, right? And talking about giving and hoarding money, right? You're in the highest tax bracket. And the one place I don't want to give my money to is the government. Like, you want to talk about bad stewardship with money?
Yeah, sure.
Give your money to the government. See what they do with it, right? So, like, to me, I'm like, I don't, like, if I'm going to be a good steward with what God's given me and the money I have, I'm not going to give it to the government.
Right.
So, like, you make $1 million a year, you're staring down a $350,000 tax bill. So, like, when that first year, like, you set up your business to make $1 million, took you a year and a half to grow it. Then that next year you make $1 million, but you need to leave like probably 400,000 of that in your business, right? So now you've built up a good safety net for your business.
Right.
And then that leaves you with 600. And then the government wants to take 350 of your 600. Talk about a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So then you get into, and this is why it gets hard you get into this cycle of, I want to avoid the taxes. So some people would tell you, just pay the taxes and then just keep the money you have. And then the next year, you likely won't have to leave 400,000 in your business.
Right. Yeah.
You'll be able to
next year, you'll get closer to that 750 or 650.
Yeah. You'll be able to keep 650, give the government 350. But over a 3-year period, you're going to give the government $1 million.
Right.
when you could take that money and you could invest it in a way that gets rid of your taxes and then makes you more money, right?
And then the problem compounds the next year since you're making more money.
It does. It's a compound thing. So what we've done is, like, last year we bought a couple more vans because as of last year you could still expense the entire cost of your van the first year. This year it's down to 80%, and it's just getting lower over the next 5 years thanks to Uncle Joe. So same with houses, right? So last year we bought a house. We bought it all cash because we could, and we didn't have time to get a loan, and we were staring at a tax bill, and we wanted to get rid of it. So we bought a $230,000 house cash in Fairbanks, and that's like, it saved us like $65,000-$70,000 on our taxes. So the $230,000 house really only cost us, I don't know what the math is, 270 grand ish, right? Or 170, yeah. 270, jeez.
That goes the other way.
Yeah, so it costs like 170 basically, and then it cash flows like $1,500 a month, right? Not the greatest cash flow, but it's going to keep going up in value, and over a 10-year period, maybe it'll make me, 12 grand a year, 120 grand, 200 grand, right? So you think about that. If you do that 4 times in a 10-year period, you just made another $1 million
right,
with money that you would have gave to the government that you don't have to. So last year we got our tax bill from $350 to $60.
Yeah.
Just by buying 2 vans. I feel like we did some other stuff too. Well, I bought a bunch of equipment. I bought cameras. I bought lights. I bought laptops. I bought more equipment for prospector plumbing. And so then this year, now we're like back in the same boat, right? So now it's like, now what do I got to do? Except now I make an extra 12 grand on the house that I bought last year. And then I invested in 2 more businesses that are probably going to make a little more money this year. So now I'm looking at a bigger tax bill. So now I got to go buy more houses. Turns into a
new problem that you have to solve.
It is. It's a new problem. And that's the thing. That's what's going to happen, like, to all these guys who have plumbing businesses. They're just going to be staring at different problems when they get there, right? Or they can just feel comfortable giving the government a bunch of money.
Depends on just how they want to live their life and the things that they want to do once they get to that point in their business.
Yeah. No thanks. I would rather spend all the money I made on something that I can write off and be left with nothing than give the government my $330,000.
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
Yeah. Yep. In this current time, that money's going to things that, well, don't make a lot of sense for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's funny how all of that, back to like the $10,000 investment. The $10,000 investment now has turned into like 3 years later, and me trying to figure out how I'm going to buy like 4 or 5 houses this year.
Yeah.
Right?
When you made that $10,000 investment, you're like, that was nowhere even in you never had these ideas before.
I didn't even know taxes. I didn't even know they like charge you that much in taxes.
Yeah. Or that you could get out of that much money by doing things.
Oh yeah. I had no idea you could not pay taxes.
Yeah. There's a whole nother world.
Okay. Here's what's crazy. So I have that house that I paid in cash, right?
Yep.
I could technically, that house, if I went and took a $100,000 loan out of that house, the house would still cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. So it would still make me money. So I could technically go take a $100,000 loan out from that house, and I could live off that 100 grand.
Yeah.
And that 100 grand is tax free. Okay. No taxes.
Yeah.
And let's say I make $1 million from all my businesses, and I buy 6 more houses, and I spend whatever other money I have, and I don't have to pay any taxes on any of that. But I invested into things that make me more money, right? Well, then the next year, I can go do it on the next house, or on the next house, or on the next house, right? So it's kind of crazy how you can just start avoiding taxes at some point in time.
Yeah.
So like what Grant Cardone is, preaches is like, hey, go borrow a little bit of money, right? And invest in these into real estate, and then your real estate is slowly going to get paid off. And then eventually you pull money out of your real estate and you spend all the rest of your money just on more real estate.
Right.
And then you're in this cycle of you never have to pay taxes again. And that's how the rich people are not paying taxes.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, whole new world that, again, you wouldn't think you could achieve being a plumber.
No, yeah. Plumber to real estate mogul. There's actually a guy that was from Fairbanks, Alaska, who did just that. Like he went from starting a plumbing business in Fairbanks, Alaska, just like I did, to owning real estate all over the world, multi-millionaire.
Right.
Ended up coming back to Alaska, and he's the guy who started the food bank, the homeless shelter.
Yeah, cool.
He supported Joel's Place for a long time. So he actually came back to the community and actually did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's weird when you just start to learn and see what's possible within like your plumbing business that you wouldn't understand or you wouldn't even conceive of because you just weren't. I mean, really, it comes down to this: like you're just not around people who think that way. Like other plumbers that you worked at before, like that you worked with before at those companies, nobody was struggling with these problems that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I
it
think
just
that's
didn't
why
seem like it was possible to even think about these problems.
I think that's why it's so important to get involved into a community where people are like thinking in a way that's different than you, where everybody's like where everybody's kind of going towards the same goal. Because like, you know, it for me, that's what made the whole change was just
that's true.
Just thinking differently.
Yeah.
And that's it. It wasn't that I did things. I mean, I did things, but the only reason I did those things is because I had a different way of thinking about something.
Yeah, sure.
Right? I had my eyes opened to something that I didn't understand before.
Well, something that you didn't understand, but it's like you weren't even aware of its existence.
No.
So you were like, hey, Jared, there's a different, like, first off, your plumbing business can put you into a different life. And by coming to that, like, little base of knowledge, then suddenly you're revealed all these things that you didn't even know existed. And then you get to begin to understand those things.
Yeah, just coming to the realization of like, okay, it's okay to put money on a credit card.
Sure.
To invest in something that I know is going to make me more money.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, it's okay to go in debt on another van so that I can get another guy in it so that he can go bill out and make more money. Because he's actually going to make more money than that van payment. And that's okay to carry that debt, right? And that understanding of like what a good investment and what good debt looks like. And then just the understanding of like, hey, you can actually set up a business with systems and processes to where it runs itself. Like all of these things were total foreign concepts to me. And it wasn't until I learned them that I was able to like use them and then achieve another level of success, right? And to your point, it was right. You're right. Like it's all stuff that I didn't know beforehand that I learned by being around other people who knew it or were doing it, right? I got involved with the community of people who were thinking differently than I was.
Right.
And it was like, oh, dang.
They were thinking differently, but they were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it was a community of plumbers doing the same thing, but they were thinking about everything differently.
Yep. And so you learn these things that you didn't know were true. Like people talk about limiting beliefs, and it's not like, I want to say it's not so much like a limiting belief. I mean, it was. I didn't think that what I did was possible, but it was more that I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, how about this? The most dangerous limiting belief is the one you don't know you have.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you
don't know you have it.
It's forever going to limit you, right?
Yeah. And really the only way to draw attention to those things is to get in a community that I would say is, well, if you can, right? Get into a community that's doing the same thing that you're doing, but they're thinking about it in a different way and they have a different belief system that undergirds it. Like, wow, this is actually a good thing that you're a plumber.
Yeah, like if you want to have a successful plumbing business, go find other plumbers who are successful and start learning how to think how they're thinking.
Right.
Understanding like what they're doing and why they're doing it. And start copying what they're doing and start copying the way they're thinking and the way they kind of view the world and the way they view debt and the way they view, all of these things. And then likely you'll have the same success that they had, right? It's not that complicated.
Yep.
That's the hard part, I guess, is getting around the people. Like, how do you find those people?
Oh, the internet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You can join our coaching program.
Yeah.
Get
There's
around
people
those
there.
people. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we really try to facilitate too, is just having a community of like-minded people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like coaching programs, that's a big part of it.
Yep.
Because that is what we lack. Like when you're doing something really difficult, that is sort of niche to your friends.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like none of your close friends are plumbing business owners.
No.
Like I don't even
They
know.
were all like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you doing all right?
Yeah.
You think you're moving a little fast?
And then like in a culture where sometimes like the other plumbing business owners in your community, they might be hostile to you wanting to start a business. And so it's like, well, what do I do here? There's no help for anything. And like that's what our coaching program can offer that. And then even in like real estate and all these other things, like there's all these programs where you can learn these skills around people who are doing the same things.
Yep.
Like we were just on a coaching call for our sales team today.
Yeah.
And it's like really helpful just to hear like everybody like, oh yeah, I have all these questions about like sales and like closing and setting all these things. I'm like, wow, this is cool. Just to learn from a bunch of people who are driving towards the same objective.
Dude, and that's the crazy part. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And you can go spend money to get to know these things.
Yeah.
But it's unreal the impact that can have.
So, and I think there's a reason why people don't know this quite yet. It's becoming more like known is because our whole perspective on education, especially when we pay for it, really comes at the college level. But college, the thing is you pay a lot of money for general ed, even at the college level. Because I talked to guys on sales calls where they're like, wow, I went to business school. And I was like, that's great, but it probably didn't tell you anything about how to run a plumbing business. They're like, no, it didn't. I kind of thought it equipped me. It's like, I know, but it doesn't.
Nope.
Like but it's general, right?
Yep.
And like general concepts are good so you can understand the bigger ideas. But when push comes to shove, like $40,000 for 4 years, general business education isn't going to help your plumbing business very much.
Right.
But then when you spend less money, but on or even the same amount on a very like focused, like this is exactly how you do this, like pound for pound, that is incredible value.
Oh yeah, totally.
And like this day and age, because we have the internet, it's like you can actually find those things.
Yeah.
And you can lean into that and like really learn skills.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, it's a cool time to be alive.
I spent $100,000 on a coach this year. And I at first was like, that's a lot of money to spend on a coach, right? And he's not even a plumbing business coach. And he's more of a real estate guy. I haven't asked him a single real estate question. But the $100,000, I've had 3 calls with him so far, right? But in those 3 calls, he's probably provided me way more value for myself in the future than the $100,000.
Yeah.
In 3 calls, just because he showed me something that I didn't know existed.
Yep.
And I was like, wow. And then he not only showed me it existed, but he showed me how to lay it out.
Right.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, and what it did is it unlocked this like thing in my brain where I could see now, oh, this level of success that I thought was unattainable, it's actually attainable.
Yeah.
And it's not that far away.
Yeah.
Right. Just like I would hope, like with this podcast, we're like, hey, this, like, you can grow a plumbing business. It is attainable, and you're not that far away from it.
Yes.
All you need is a tiny little bit of money, a credit card, and I would probably get a coach to help you put all that together as quick as possible.
Right. So that you can actually hit that 1.5 year attainment schedule of like, okay, we can make $1 million a year now.
Yep.
We can profit $1 million a year now.
Yeah. And then you can go spend $100,000 on a coach.
Yeah. And have 3 phone calls.
Have 3 phone calls that hopefully change your life. Right.
Yeah.
But like even that, like even this call, like with our sales guy, like that coaching, it helped us like develop the systems for a course, developed the systems of sales, develop how we think about that stuff, helped us hire a guy, helps us train a guy. Like I think I've spent $45,000 just on that coaching alone. Not just this year. I spent a little bit of that last year, but I mean, it's been invaluable.
And again, it's just opening our eyes to things that we didn't know.
Yeah. Learning things we didn't know so that we can put things in place to make more money with the things that we didn't know.
Yeah, because really the assumption is by spending this money sort of upfront, I'm going to be, we'll say, saving money in the long run because the expenses that incur when I make mistakes won't be there.
Yeah.
Or if they are there, they're far less. And a lot of times they're just not going to be there because you're not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to go down this road because I know that road's stupid because everybody told me it. So I'm just going to keep going this way.
Yep.
And so like, yeah, you spend this money, but you're avoiding so much headache.
Yep.
Because like, if you don't know what you're doing, like, it's just like, it's like the cost can be incredible.
Yeah.
It's like if you're like, hey, Joel, can you go and like put a boiler in my house? I'm like, sure, Jared. And then I just start getting after it.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be very expensive.
Yeah. Without
Probably
reading all the manuals.
Yeah.
First.
Probably pretty dangerous.
Probably.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. So why would we approach our businesses in the same way? Like, why would we approach things?
I don't know, but like that's one thing. Like I didn't even know that was an option.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Yeah, sure. or sometimes it seems like it's a suspicious option.
Yeah.
Like, well, this can't be, let's see, what would be the thought? Like, this can't be that easy, or this can't be this simple, or these things. And like, don't get us wrong. It's not like, oh, this is easy, because it's still difficult for you to do stuff.
Yeah, it's simple. It's not easy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that Coldplay song.
Yeah, that's
nobody
true.
said it was easy, but nobody said it was going to be this hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, dude, work is hard.
It's hard for a little bit. I'm not going to lie, but it's a lot easier if you know, like, oh, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. So
here's the steps.
It's easier because you have a sense of hope and a sense of what to do next.
And it's simplified.
Yeah, that's true. Where you just, again, you're not writing all these things. Like, you don't have to make all these complicated spreadsheets to track all this crazy stuff. It's just like, oh,
and then redo it because you did it wrong.
Yeah, you had no idea how to make a spreadsheet in the first place or whatever. So you have to go learn that skill.
Dude,
like,
that's me 100%.
Yeah.
I had no idea what Google Sheets was until I started a business, and I was like, whoa.
There's like numbers and junk in
this does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was on a call with a guy the other day, and he was like, dude, you're really good at that. Like, you make that look so easy. And I was like, if you only knew.
If you only knew how frustrated I got at this process.
Only reason I'm good at it is because I spent a lot of time trying to figure this crap out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Cool, man. Wrap us up. Give us like 5-minute little wrap up.
So, I mean, you don't need financing to grow your business. That's really like what we're trying to get across to everybody's like, with a small investment, whether that's cash that you put away or cash that you borrowed or a credit card, you can just get going. And once you get going, if you're priced right, you can create a system that continues to spit out more cash than you put in. And then you can grow your business really fast off of the cash that you're making. And it just requires getting started, right? Just get that first step going, get it started, get the pricing right and the marketing in place. And then you're pretty much off to the races from there.
And really the reason why you would do that is because with that 10 grand, you can achieve like the life of your dreams.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even talking like hyperbolically because like chances are the life of your dreams, dear listener to this podcast, is probably a lot smaller because you don't actually know what you have.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny part is once you achieve the life of your dreams, you're going to be like, this is it?
Or you're going to be like, I guess I still got money in the bank now that I got the life of my dreams.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
I don't know. We got a guy in our program. He wants a G-Wagon.
He'll get there.
He wants the fancier things in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, dude, you'll get there. Like, you could afford a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
But like what I found is, so I remember I wanted a boat. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Put that picture of the boat on the fridge.
The picture, yep.
It was like the boat. I wanted the camper van. Dude, I don't care about any of that anymore. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah. That's interesting.
All of my wants went away.
Well, that's kind of like that's it though, right? It's like you want the things that you don't think you can get to. But then once you realize you can have them, you're like, well, it's actually not that cool.
No.
Like for me, like the really dumb example is like all week I'm like, dang, I just want to play like video games all day. And then like my kids leave Saturday, my wife leaves Saturday for some reason. I'm like, I got the whole day. And I'm like, oh dang, I'm kind of bored and kind of just want to be with my kids, you know? Like it's just a weird paradox of life that like the thing that we think we want, we only want until we actually have the ability to get it. And then we're like, oh, well, that's not that great like I thought it was. It's just, it's weird.
The things aren't that great. I'll tell you what's great about growing a business and making millions of dollars a year is the freedom you get.
Sure. Yeah.
And most people, when they started their plumbing business, that's what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Like the money wasn't really the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the money that gives you the freedom, though.
Right.
It's the money and the way you set up your business that gives you the freedom. Like you could have all the money and still not have the freedom.
Yep.
But if you have a business that's set up, that's systemized, and it spits out money, that's how you get your freedom back.
Yep.
And that, to me, that's the most valuable part.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at a boat and I'm like, that's actually going to like tie me down.
Yeah, because
And
now
I'm going to lose
use the
freedom.
boat.
Yeah.
I feel obligated
I
to
got to
go.
store the boat. I got to clean the boat.
Yeah, I got to learn how to use. Yeah, got to learn how to use the boat.
Yeah.
Got to buy a fancy truck.
Yeah. Anyway, go do it.
Okay.
Start your business, grow it, buy a van, do some marketing, hire a coach. Year and a half later, start buying houses because you got a big tax bill.
Dude, easy peasy. Cool. Thanks, dude.
All right. See you, Holmes.
See ya.